What's up, everybody? Listen, another rate hike. Is this the end that we've been waiting for? Is the market finally crashing? Or is there something else going on? Welcome to Scale Through the Fail. Let's get this party started. It's been all over the news. You can't escape it. Jerome Powell has done it again. He's won our hearts over with yet another rate hike. Wait a second, that doesn't sound right. Now, listen, another rate hike. And many people are wondering to themselves, is this the end of the rate hikes? Is this the start of the crash that so many people whisper about on all the news channels? And you see people posting on Facebook? Or is this a false flag? Do we still have a longer, more painful journey to go? Well, today we're going to talk about that. This is Scale Through the Fail. I'm your host, Robert Bean, and I'm bringing in Walter Key to help talk about some of these pain points that we're seeing and what's going on in the real estate industry. Walter.
What's up, everybody? Walt Key here, and I love talking about pain. Wait, something like that.
I mean, with your background,
after all,
I could see you actually like talking about pain.
Yeah, I could talk about pain. Mental pain, physical pain, the pain of not being disciplined in your business. We could talk about pain all day, actually.
We could talk about pain all day.
I guess I do like the subject of pain.
We do, don't we?
Yeah.
So listen, Walter, I don't have to tell you twice, but I'm going to tell everybody here. So Wednesday, the Jerome Powell came out, and he definitely had something to say. And
old J Powell.
It was a little bit painful because while so many banks, corporations, even politicians are all saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. He goes, hold my beer. And and he does another rate hike, which I believe this one was 0.75. Does that sound right?
Yep, 75 basis points
0.75. That brings the prime up to 6, or not the prime, sorry. That brings up the, well, why am I drawing a blank now? The
target rate?
The 7, because
mortgage rates are about 7.
Yeah, is a 7. So, yeah, I mean, we're sitting pretty high on that interest rate hikes. Now, kind of tell me from your perspective, like, why do you think he did it? I mean, he gave his reasons, but why do you think he did it from your perspective?
So it's funny. I think it's not what he did, it's how he did it. And what I mean by that is I think most of the market was forecasting 75 basis points, right? Most of the market, the bond market, it had already factored in, yeah, it's coming. Old J Powell's going to hit us with another 3/4, right? They knew that. I knew that. And I'm not the smartest guy out there. So people knew that. But what they were expecting was for him to basically come out and say, okay, 3/4, I think it's time to ease it up. We probably won't do that again. We're going to start reducing our rate hikes. I think we're getting, and instead he came out and said, well, we have to wait and see how it goes. I don't know that we're really making the progress we were making. All bets are off still. And that is actually what kind of freaked the market out. It wasn't the 75 basis point rate hike because that was factored in. It was how he conveyed what he might do in the future. I think that was not anticipated. What was anticipated was a little bit of a softer tone, a little bit more dovish, if you will, to use a political term. And it was very hawkish with what he said. It was a little more aggressive than people were expecting. So we saw, the mortgage rate kick up a little bit more, even though they baked in most of it. It bumped up, and when I say more, right, 75 basis points, but the rate right now, as of the end of yesterday's, according to Mortgage News Daily, is 7.3. So it went up a little. It went up a couple tenths of a point. It didn't go up 3/4 of a point, just because the bond market reacted to how he said what he said, and that's pretty standard. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, what does he do in December? And there's a lot of great, I've been dropping some TikToks and stuff on this lately. I love this conversation. Jobs report came out at 8:30 this morning. I was waiting with bated breath to see what that said. That's going to be a huge indicator to what he might do in December. And then the CPI report will come out next week. That will be a huge indicator as to what he will do in December. And this is what you'll see, mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, from today's jobs report to next week's CPI report, and then moving into the Fed announcement in December, you will see the market get ahead of that announcement. The big brains are going to say, based on the jobs report, based on the CPI report, based on where inflation's at, based on what we're seeing, we expect this to be what Jay Powell says. So the bond rates are going to move ahead of that. The bond rates will correlate to the mortgage rates. The mortgage rates are going to move ahead of that. And then as long as what he does is in line with what everyone thinks, it'll be a relatively flat December in terms of reaction, right? If he says something drastic or if he does something different, we'll see a little bit more reaction in the market. So as an example,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, as an example, today's jobs report, we were forecasting, the economic experts, not me, 205,000 non-farm payroll jobs. Well, the number was 261,000. That's a 28% increase in jobs, non-payroll farm jobs, to what we thought it would be. Now, that sounds great because that means there were more jobs put out. Now, when you crunch all the numbers, when you look at there's a lot of metrics in the jobs report. So not to get super nerdy, because I could spend the show getting super nerdy.
I know.
The jobs created, even though they went up, the unemployment rate actually went up a little too. And you're like, well, how could the unemployment rate go up if more jobs were created? There's other metrics in there. There's just bear with me. I'll save you the geekiness. The unemployment rate actually kicked up a smidge from 3.5 to 3.7. Now, for the Fed, that's actually good. For the rest of the world, that's bad because people lost jobs, theoretically. But the way Fed monetary policy works is I have to raise rates to make it hurt financially so that employers figure out, how do we cut cost? Well, we fire people. And therefore, those people don't have enough money because they don't have a job. So they stop spending money in the economy. That demand goes down. Supply and demand is what causes inflation. So when the demand goes down because people don't have money, inflation comes down. And so that, in a nutshell, is the fifth grade version of what Fed monetary policy is. That's the whole.
Let me jump in here. So there's a couple things, great things to unpack. One is, I think you set a good example as an agent, as a coach, as a mentor, for knowing what's happening and why it's happening. I think that's really important, because when we know the truth, like even when we're afraid of something, if we know what we're afraid of, we're more likely to face it, more likely to do something about it, versus I'm afraid of something I don't know or understand. That's when we get wild and drastic. So I think one thing, that I pulled out of there was just understand what's happening, so you know how to respond, you know what to do. Yeah. The second thing that I actually think is a great business lesson is how you deliver your leadership decisions is really imperative, because like you said, I wasn't shocked that he raised it again. I was not shocked, because he had been saying for the last year now, pretty much almost a year. Wow. Almost a year. That he's going to keep raising interest rate hikes. Like, that's just going to keep coming. But the problem is he came in so weak and inconsistent in his delivery that he was like, yeah, I think I'm what did they say? If you're not sure, don't say anything.
Yeah.
And he kept hinting of, let's soften it, guys. I think I might slow up on this. And then he came in and kind of misled people. And he came in with a totally different attitude than what he had kind of been giving us the last 2 to 3 months, the last 2 to 3 meetings that they've had. And so now they're like, I was anticipating something, but your delivery makes me nervous. And that's when we saw the market bleed. Wall Street and bonds and crypto obviously followed soon after. We saw a huge sell-off because people, again, they're afraid of what they don't know. There's a lot of people who know how to make money, when they know what they're afraid of, because they know how to use that fear or work around that fear. But when they're like, I don't really know what he's saying, and I don't really know, he could change his mind. Because what he left us with was super confusing. What he left us with, what he kind of ended the meeting with was,
we'll wait and see.
We'll wait and see. Essentially, he said, we'll wait and see, because he said two things that were contradictory. He said, we should probably soften this because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. But at the same time, I'm going to raise the interest rates overall to a peak even higher than they currently are. He didn't say when. He didn't say how often. He didn't say if it was going to be in a group and just go up a whole point or not. He just said he might do that. And it kind of sounds like a dad who's like knows they need to punish their kid,
but they're not quite. No,
but he wants to be best friends with their kid, and he's like, I don't want you guys to hate me, but I really need to punish you because you were disrespectful to your mom. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you got to pick one. You can't be the best friend and the best dad at the same time. You have to pick one. So I think there's some really important things. You know, as we talk about in this industry, you and I predominantly talk about this very frequently, is to know your numbers. It's imperative. So I challenge anybody who's listening right now, you know, watching this video, whether it's a replay or you're live with us. Shout out to everybody who's here live, by the way, getting information. That's right. That's how we do it. Here's what I'm going to challenge you on is, do you know the numbers? Everything Walter talked about. You don't have to necessarily be Walter, but do you know enough to where when your clients or if you're a broker or a team leader, your agents have fears or questions? Because if you think they don't, if you think silence means that they're okay, you're lying to yourself. Silence means that they don't know what to do, that they're generally not confident. Confident people are not afraid to talk about these things. They don't shy away from them. And in fact, they usually will get passionate about it, like we are right now. We're going live, mistakes and all, to talk about something we're confident on, we're passionate about. So do you know how to answer these questions? And then I always tell people, and Walter, you've heard me say this a million times, at any point in your career, at all times, as a real estate agent, team leader, broker, whatever, you need to be able to answer two questions, which is, why is now a good time to buy? And why is now a good time to sell? Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants to know. When someone asks, I was talking to an agent at our State of the Union on Monday, and when one of them asked, and I said, when someone asks about interest rates, why are they asking? And he goes, oh, well, probably because they saw the news and was wondering what's going on. I'm like, no, that's not why they're asking. What they're really asking is, deep down inside, they've made a decision. And they want to know if that's a good decision or not.
Yeah.
I need to sell my house. When they ask, are housing prices going down? They don't actually care if housing prices are going down. They just need to know if it's okay for them to sell their house right now, if it's a good decision. Well, how can you answer that question if you don't know the data or the facts? If you don't know how much houses are selling for? No guesses. Go into most MLSs and check the data. Partner up with a great lender, because they have great programs that show them a lot more than what agents get to see on the financial side of homes sold and things like that. So long story short is, diving into this and kind of knowing. So Walter, we see the rate hike. He kind of left us in this very uncertain stage where we don't really know. He said, I'm probably going to continue to raise them. Yep. Even though I know I should probably soften them, I think the pain is more important to go through in the short term. So what does this mean for real estate, man? What do you predict, right? What's your assumption that going into, because we're 2 months away from 2023.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think we're going to see at the start of the year?
So a couple things, and then I'll answer that question. One thing I am confident we will see is continued Fed fund rate hikes. Will they be 75 basis points? I don't know yet, but they will be higher next month. In December, we will raise the Fed funds rate again. No question in my mind. The jobs report that came out today, kind of a mixed bag for the Fed, right? That was a good baseline to say, should he raise it higher or lower, et cetera, right? We've got more jobs created than we wanted to, which is bad for the Fed. But unemployment overall went up, which is good for the Fed. But month to month, payroll increased, which is bad for the Fed. Because that means the inflation policy isn't hurting businesses enough to start cutting costs, to stop raising the payroll.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Right. We made more jobs, but we're paying more. Well, if we're paying more, that means inflation's not really under control because the companies aren't clamping down yet. So the jobs report was kind of a mixed bag. Now, I will say, just arbitrary, stock market is reacting well. Most of the indices are up 1 to 1.25%. The bond market is reacting well. It's ranging between 0.5% to 1.25% up. Now, for those who don't understand what I mean when I say bond market is up, the bond market is the 10-year treasury is probably the best correlation to what the mortgage rates will do, but it's inverse. So if the bond rate goes up, the mortgage rates come down. If the bond rate comes down, the mortgage rates go up. So bear that in mind. So when I say the bond rate is up between 0.5% and 1.25%, because it's ranging, right? It's buying and selling just like anything else. That's actually a good indication that over the next couple of days, we may see the interest rates kick down a smidge because the bond rates go up, mortgage rates go down.
Emphasize the word smidge, everybody.
Smidge, yeah, not drastically, a little. We might go from 7.3 to, as of close of business yesterday, to maybe scraping the 7 mark by the end of next week.
Right.
Maybe 6.99. Yeah, something in that range. Depends on what the rest of the bond market does throughout the rest of the week, of course. But so that's a little bit of a mixed bag for the Fed, right? The question in most people's mind was not, will they raise rates in December? It was, will they raise it 0.75 of a point or 0.5 point? The jobs market is kind of, well, we didn't really change much. But here's an interesting thing that will play into December that isn't in this October jobs report. You Google this, you can find it. Amazon says we are about to lay off people. We're going to stop hiring. Amazon has said we are going to stop hiring people. Apple has said we are going to do a hiring freeze. We're not hiring any more people. Now, those pauses in hiring now they're announcing them, but those aren't reflecting in the current jobs report because it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So in December, the Fed's going to have to say, well, I know what the jobs report was, but also I know that these major corporations have come out and publicly said we're no longer hiring. That means my policy is moving in the right direction. So maybe we can get away with 0.5 point instead of 0.75 point. So somewhere between 0.5 and 0.75, one of those two is what we'll see in December. That will be baked in. By the time that announcement happens in December, the mortgage rates will be 95% baked into that already. So because the bond rates will get ahead of it.
Yep.
We will probably see Walt Key's crystal ball. I'll shake it real quick. Magic 8 ball. We will probably end the year in the 7s. That's Walt Key's thought.
Yeah.
In the 7s. Now, 7.25, 7.75, 7.97. I don't know. I'm not that good, but I feel like this year is going to end in the 7s because we are going to still see the Fed bump the rates up in December.
Yeah.
The big question mark is, do you as an agent understand how to have a conversation with your buyers? Because they don't have to pay market rates, right? If you have the skills and the knowledge to explain to your buyer that, listen, Mr. Buyer, if you can't afford this home at 7.5, cool. Let's do it at 6 instead. That'll save you hundreds of dollars a month. Now you can go buy the house you need to buy at the mortgage payment you can afford, because I know how to get the seller to pay down your interest rate to get you at 6 instead of 7.5. Don't fret. Let the market knowledge work in your favor. We got you.
Here's where it gets really important. All right. So for people listening in, again, shout out to all you guys coming in and actually taking time to learn. It's some of this none of it's sexy other than Walter and his Hawaiian shirt. None of it's sexy. But the reality is that this is reality. And if you do not have a grasp on what is reality, then all of your goals and your plans will just be fantasy. How'd you like that one? That was pretty good,
That was
right?
good. That
I
was
like
pretty
that line,
solid.
right? I made that up as we went. I was like, where am I going with this? But here's the truth, right? In every market, no matter the circumstances, there is opportunity. And I can't emphasize that enough. One of the worst economic times that Germany ever went through was after World War II. Who would have thought? And I'm telling you guys, like, there was nothing. There were not really grocery stores. There was no such thing as mom and pop shops. Like, Germany was going through just a horrendous time because their might came from, surprisingly, conquering. Their wealth came from allies seeing them powerful and donating to their cause, which we all know how that worked out for them. But here's what's incredible is that someone saw a need inside of that, and that need was for affordable groceries. People still needed to eat, guys. And that's where Aldi came from. Aldi was born in World War II, just after World War II. And their model was, we can't afford to have any fluff. So we're going to strip down the idea of a grocery store to where it's the bare bones, there's shelves. We don't even take the produce out of the boxes they were shipped in. And we give that to you. And in exchange, we pass on the savings because we didn't have to pay an extra person to do as much unloading. And we didn't have to pay for extra displays and things like that. And now Aldi is one of the top grocery stores in the world. In a time where everybody said you'd be an idiot for opening up a business. No, you'd be an idiot for opening up a business that doesn't belong in that time. And what I mean by that is that if you're going to open up a luxury shop in a neighborhood that can't afford luxury, you probably don't know your audience. And so why I say that story, right? Because it's a very dramatic story, but then let's make it about real estate. When you get into real estate, some of the largest, whether they're corporations or independent owners, right? I know a guy locally who owns like 60 plus properties. Hey, when did you buy those? That's what I asked him. When did you buy the majority of your properties? And he said, what do you think he said, Walter?
Probably somewhere between 2009 and 2011, right as the crash was in its full swing.
Right? And he stretched himself. Well, let's be clear. At that time, he was not rich. He did not have daddy's trust fund. He was just determined. And he exercised every opportunity he could possibly get to acquire a property, to make something happen. And now he sits pretty with where he's at right now. And so when you're a real estate agent, okay, you will not know opportunity if you don't know what's happening. You will not be able to see, because data, facts, that's your glasses, that's your lens that puts things into perspective for you, right? Facebook and the news, those haze up your vision. You push those out of your way. You put on your glasses with facts and data, and that will help you to see where the opportunity is, right? We've got a partner, a lender who has an investment loan that is based off of the investment potential income of the investment property. Entirely different than most mortgages and most loans. Opportunity right now, right? And there's so much. So Walter, share with me kind of, and everybody listening, some of the opportunities. And real quick, everybody, what do you think we're going to see going in? What do you think we're going to end the year on when it comes to interest rates? I want to keep this going every week. I'd love to see. Be specific. 7.1, 6.9, 8. Be specific. I want to document who was closest. And if you even want to one up us, share your reasoning why you think it's going to be where it is. All right, Walter. So give me some opportunities that you're seeing. Not even a couple months ago. Right now, interest rates just went up. So some crap's going to happen. There's going to be some fallout. Where's the opportunity for a real estate agent / their clients?
So if I'm a real estate agent and I'm representing a buyer, the opportunity to my buyer is to be able to negotiate a better deal than they have in the last several months, right? Because with the decrease in buyer demand, some houses are sitting longer. The sellers aren't used to that, even though like let's be real, we're still less than 30 days average days on market. We're still in a hot seller's market, but people are short minded. They're short term focused. So they're so used to listed, sold in a weekend. Now it's sitting for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They go, oh my gosh, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
your opportunity, because you're taking advantage, for, let's call it what it is. You're taking advantage of the seller's fear that their house isn't going to sell because everything else sold so fast and theirs hasn't. You go solve their problem. They still want to sell their house, but you do it in a way that presents you a better deal. As another example, right? I love talking about the rate buy downs because so many people get their head wrapped around the rate, but you're not locked into that rate. If you look at a conventional loan, the seller can contribute 3% if you're paying anywhere from 0 to 10% down. If you're paying more than 10% down, the seller can contribute 6% to your loan. FHA loan with a 3.5% down payment, the seller can contribute 6% to your closing costs, points, prepaids, etc.
Let me do a quick disclaimer, Walter. Always talk to your lender first.
Of
this
course.
is not financial advice. I know we got to say this.
Yeah, these are high picture guidelines.
These are high picture guidelines.
But I'm not a lender.
30,000-foot view.
My point is that, let's say, rather than going and asking the seller to give you 3% because you want this piece of GFCI outlet replaced for $18 at Lowe's, you tell the seller, I want to buy your house and I know you want it sold. So here's how we do this. I need you to contribute 3% of the purchase price directly towards my interest rate. Done. 3%. That's 3 points. I just bought your rate from 7 to 5.5. Let's go. The seller wins. They get their house sold in a market where they're sitting longer. It's a win for the seller. It's a win for the buyer. They get in a house that's hundreds of dollars a month more affordable. Everybody wins. That's the opportunity if you're a buyer. Now, flip that on its head. If I'm an agent representing a seller, I'm going to take that knowledge, that data to my seller, and I'm going to get ahead of that. And I'm going to say, listen, Mr. Seller, everyone else is going to sit on the market longer than you. And here's why. We're going to tell every buyer out there that we're willing to give them the buy down that they may not even know about yet. Let's go.
Yes.
And that's it. You create the opportunity on the other side. Now, if you're an investor and you're smart enough to realize that over the history of the world, real estate will go up in value. It always has, it always will. Right? I won't bore you with the last 40 years of the Case-Shiller index. And even in a recession, real estate market typically goes up or flatlines briefly. That's a fact. Look it up. You don't have to take my word for it. So if I know that real estate is always a good investment long-term, and I know that people are stressed and they're worried, and is this going to sell? It's been 6 months ago, Aunt Sally sold her house in 4 days. Mine's been on the market for 40 days. Did we do something wrong? Oh my gosh. You know those opportunities exist. Go take advantage of them. Go buy up a rental property. Go buy a property you can turn into a short term. Go buy a distressed property and flip it. Go build your own wealth through the knowledge that you are telling your sellers and buyers about every day. Right. And here's a little extra tidbit, right? Shout out to our lender. You don't have to have the income situated. Well, I'm self-employed and I've only been a real estate agent for 14 months and they want to see 2 years of tax returns. Don't care about any of that. Go find a good deal. A lender can approve it. I don't need to see your bank statements. I don't need to see your financials.
So you say something
if you've been self-employed for 8 months instead of 2 years. See, there's an opportunity out there.
Yes, and this is so important. I love that you're bringing this up, because what you said was someone said no. Now, most people go, one lender, 5 lenders told me no. Well, there's 300,000 lenders out there, and one of them might tell you yes. Okay. Yeah. And I'm gonna put it out there. I'm not talking about online national lenders who don't know you and they don't know their products and it's outsourced. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an expert. Real expert. People. There is things called hard money. There are things called assumable loans. There are 2-1 buy downs. There are cash out refis, which that's a whole different conversation about how you can get your money out of the property quickly or there is so much opportunity. And so when you hear someone say no, I always ask them I always ask them 2 questions. Okay. All right, because just because someone says no doesn't mean they don't have value to bring. So the first question is, so Walter, you tell me no, I can't do this loan. I'm going to go, Walter, sorry, man, I understand. You got your regulations, your guidelines to follow. What's the best that you can do to help me with this? Because they might have another opportunity, but they're just as short-sighted as you are. Let's be real. Someone comes in, says, I want a conventional loan. They say, can't give you a conventional loan. Sorry. When you say, but what's the best you can do for me? They might have another loan product. They might have a creative opportunity. They might have some way to help you. Shoot, I've literally had this happen where they go, my bank can't help you, but I'll tell you what, I'm looking for an investment property. And if you see a good deal, I'd go in on it with you. You just don't know. Ask them, what's the best you can do for me? Then the second question is, can you point me to someone who can do that?
Yep.
Shout out to Jennifer Otto, who is wonderful for doing that. She goes, that's not my type of loan. Here's a guy that I trust. She instills confidence in that if she says she can do it, she can, because she doesn't take on things she can't do or she's not the best at. She says, if I'm doing it, I'm the best at it and I'm going to crush it. You need people like that. I outsource everything that I'm not great at to someone who is great at it, right? So the opportunity is really, really, really important. Right now, without even a contract, I have sellers on investment properties that I'm looking at already telling me that they would consider an offer lower than list price. I haven't even made an offer. And they're already, and that's not an insult to them, by the way. What that is it's just showing their anxiety around this market. And I won't judge the agent because I don't know if sometimes they have had conversations and they're trying, and sometimes people are just people. We're all human. But what I will say is that if you're a listing agent, like Walter said, you need to know these numbers so that you know what a good offer actually is. That you set expectations so that when you can get ahead of it, and you can even turn around and like there's still opportunity for multiple offers. Do you know why? Because there's a whole lot of buyers who don't want to pay more than they have to on their interest rate. Yeah. If you advertise a buy down, always follow local regulations, your brokers, blah, blah, blah. Buyers are immediately, you know why? Because agents know or should know their buyer's situation. And they're going to be like, hey, listen, this may not even be your dream property, but look at this part right here. They said that they will automatically put X, Y, and Z towards your rate buy down. All of a sudden, right? That house just became a lot sexier. That house just became, and they're going to be like, I've got to get this. And that happens when you do that. People will then be more willing to pay more for that. And then someone else is going to look at that and be like, oh my gosh, I got to get this before someone else gets this opportunity. So as a listing agent, you have an amazing opportunity to teach your clients about what's happening in the market and set them up for success based off of facts and data. Get them ahead of the game, right? This is where you get to show off that you're not just someone who orders pictures and posts them on the MLS, that you are more than that, that you are knowledgeable and skilled and experienced. And if you're not, tune into our shows, ask questions, we talk for free, like connect with people who know what they're talking about so that you can become an expert. And then if you're a buyer, now's an amazing opportunity. You do have sellers who are willing to give you concessions. Here's the thing. You can't change the purchase price once you've closed, right? And if you can reasonably emphasize the word and underline the word reasonably, afford a home right now, you will probably win. Statistically, you will win long-term. Statistically, okay? Statistically. Don't worry about outliers, someone who is an idiot or follow bad advice. Statistically, you will win. Before we even tracked mortgages, we have historical data. So before we tracked mortgages and how homes were sold, guess what? Someone who owned a house that's 200 years old, let me tell you, the house, just for historical reasons, is probably worth a lot more than the pennies they paid for it. So even in like layman's terms, without some official index, we see that real estate has brought so much value to people who hold it and use it the right way. So Um, when we talk about going into next year, what can agents be doing right now, Walter, to set themselves up to acquire market share? Like, what's some basic, simple things, techniques that they could do today to go gain market share, trust, build
Yeah.
relationships, win in this market?
So, one, double down on all of the activity you're used to doing. Don't shrink back. Don't say, well, I don't have as many clients that are looking to buy right now. I don't have as many listings. Good. That means you have more time. Go build your database. Go call more people. Go get on social media more. Go build that YouTube channel that you've been putting off because you've been so busy. Go double down on your active prospecting activities so that you can be building up a database now when you have the time to build it. So when the market shifts again and everyone goes, woohoo, let's go, you've tripled the amount of buyers and sellers that you're working with when they're ready.
Yep.
Don't lose this amazing opportunity to use your time wisely to build a larger database. Nurture that database through follow-up. Educate that database through the things that we're talking about so that when the time is right for them, because guess what? Here's the reality. It's not your choice. It's not your choice when the buyer buys. It's not your choice when the seller sells. You're going to educate. You're going to empower them as much as you can. You're going to give them all of the wisdom you have so they know their options. But at the end of the day, it's their call. But the more people you educate, the more people you empower, the more people are going to make that decision when they're ready, and your business will explode when that time comes. Don't get lazy just because you've got less active clients you're working with right this second. Go make more clients.
Go make more clients. So I'm going to add to that. When people are afraid, do you think that the best way to build a relationship is to add to the fear or to cut through it?
Yeah, exactly right. And the best way to cut through that fear is knowledge.
Knowledge. That's right. And so I'm going to give you a couple practical stuff. This is all free that you can do right now. Okay. Right now. I mean this. You just learned a ton from us. And when I say a ton, the reason why I say a ton is because if you've been listening, you have turned around and learned more than most agents have learned about the market this entire year. I mean that respectfully because it's not something that's encouraged or taught. It's really not. I've been in a lot of brokerages. I work with a lot of agents, and nobody talks, for the most part, about educating yourself about what's happening in the market. I mean, honestly, I rarely hear it, and that blows my mind. I wouldn't even consider myself like Mr. Know-It-All, and I know it all. I know enough to cut through the crap. That's why we call it Scale Through the Fill, real estate news, noise, and what's next. I know what's news, I know what's noise, and I know what to do next. Okay. If you don't know those things, you're going to have a problem. Okay. So education, one thing you can do, newsletter every single week, once a week. Okay. Houses, a couple market updates, a video of you explaining, hey, here's what we saw on the market this week. Even when things are bad, there are going to be people who need to buy and sell. And when I say bad, like, yes, it's uncomfortable having rate hikes. Like, let's be real. It's uncomfortable. That won't change the fact that in my market, 64,000 closings happened last month. I can't say that nobody's buying or selling. I hear agents say that all the time, and I'm like, clearly you haven't looked at your MLS. Your MLS says you're a liar. If I turned around, which I've heard agents in my market go, oh, yeah, man, things are just really hard. Nobody's buying or selling right now. I go, holy crap, then we got 64,000 cases of fraud. Right. We got 64,000 cases of fraud last month. How many homes do you need to sell in a year? 15, 18 to reach my goal. Really? Well, you just had 64,000 chances to meet your goal. You gonna take it? It does get hard, right? It is uncomfortable. So go do a newsletter every week, educating people, spotlight a nice property, talk about the markets, explain to people what's happening. You can say, here's the good. You can say, here's the bad. It's okay. You don't have to lie to them. You don't have to lie to them. When Jerome Powell says it's uncomfortable and it's painful, when the news shows them the stock markets are going down, when Amazon and Apple said they're freezing but you know how to interpret that and teach them where the opportunity is. So you can take the bad and turn it into good for them. So newsletter, another thing. Market updates. So again, you can make that part of your newsletter. You can do it separate on social media. I would encourage you to do both together, where you go and say, it could be once a month. Again, once a week is really effective right now because people are afraid every day. Right now, there's so much turmoil that like what happens in a month is so drastic week over week that if you're just hitting people every week, you're just going to have a much higher likelihood of reaching them. But going out and educating them, having social media content that it teaches people, that tells them a story of success in the market, not just regurgitated crap. I'm sorry, but you got to stop doing it. You got to stop doing it. Stop saying 100 times over that rent prices are going to go up. Like, if that works, now it's not okay. It's okay to do it every now and then, right? You can have some diversity, but that can't be your sole message.
Especially now. Because the data has shifted. Rent prices aren't going up. If you're still parroting
some markets,
that from a year ago, you better know your data. Better make sure it is actually the truth, because if a client looks it up and you're wrong, you're wrong forever.
Forever. And they will never trust you again, more than likely. So some markets, by the way, have seen a slight decline in rent prices. Now, let me explain that, because I do want to explain that really quickly, because it is important for you to understand. It's not saying the value of rent is going down. It's a correction. What happens is that typically rent is calculated off cap rates, comparables in the market, and then some and many investors will turn around and use the 1% rule, which is 1% of what they buy it for is what they rent it for. Well, when people were paying extra high overinflated housing costs, people turned around and said, well, I'm going to rent it for 1%. I got to make my money back from this very expensive purchase I made. So they had an overinflated housing price and a overinflated renting price to match the overinflated price they paid for. So when we saw the market correction where houses started to come back down to reality, rent had to do the same. It makes sense. So I just want to make that clear. That's not to say the demand for renting is down. That's not to say that renting is not a good investment. That's not what that means. Just like seeing a correction on a house does not mean you shouldn't buy a house. It means that it's actually becoming closer to sound data. It's coming closer to margins where it belongs. Historically, not opinionated, historically, where it should fall into, right? So just remember that, right? Just remember that when you even hear that news, because I've heard agents throw articles up, rents are just declining. And listen, context is important. Don't add fear, add truth. And the truth will set you free. It'll set your clients free. It'll give you a lot to talk about. So education, do the videos, do a newsletter, hold a mastermind with your fellow agents, get your broker involved, get your team leader involved. If your broker and team leader aren't doing it, you know what you should do? Volunteer. Either ask them to do it, and if they won't, which by the way, sometimes they won't, I would not want to be around a lead. I would not want to pay a leader who doesn't want to lead. Let's put it that way. Okay. But you can also just take charge. Take charge. I promise you, even though you'd be educating my competition, you're not. You're helping to save your industry from destruction. Good agents will listen to you and do good. Bad agents will probably be scared and get out because they can't compete. You're going to need other agents. We need to work together. So educate yourself. That's really, really important. All right. So shout out to Eliana, who says 7.6 is her estimate that we're going to hit at the end of the year. That's pretty close to what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
I think I was going to say right around 7.6, 7.7. So Eliana, I love it. Facebook user says, I just started investing. Would love to pick your brain on how you have done it. Man, both Walter and I invest, and we invest differently. We have different strategies and approaches. We would love to talk about investments. So please send us a message, tag us in a comment. We'll connect with you directly. We are an open book, and we'll share with you all about our different strategies in investing. And depending on where you're at, we might even connect you with some great investing resources, like that lender we talked about who has an investment loan that is based off of the property and actually not the person. Wow, mind-blowing, right? Anybody else listening? Throw down your estimates. What do you think we're going to land at with interest rates by the end of the year? Mortgage interest rates is what I should say. I should clarify, 7.6 mortgage interest rate, like Eliana said.
30-year fixed specifically.
30-year fixed. Thank
Yeah.
you again. Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you think we're going to land at? And then what questions do you have? Now, Walter, I've got something really fun for us to do that we haven't done before. All right. This is kind of a new section that I'm trying to bring in that's a little more like pop culture meets real estate, because I think it's a little bit fun.
All right.
So Kanye West has been in the news a lot. I don't care whether you support him or not. It is not a political discussion. But something interesting came up a lot that I was seeing, which was Kanye's broke. I said, okay, all right. That's a really interesting thing to say. One, because most people have no idea what his financials actually are. So it's a really weird thing to say, to be honest. I don't know how much money you have, Walter. I don't know how many properties you own. I don't know what your status with those properties are, right? If you own them outright, can you cash refi? I don't know. Just because you have one part of your business that collapses, even if it's your main part, does not mean you as a person are broke. But I see a lot of people talking about this. So my brain goes, well, is he broke? And the first thing I looked at was real estate. I looked at his real estate. So eventually I'm going to get better at this, guys. I'm going to have like slides where I bring this stuff up. But I want to go over some of what Kanye owns in real estate. Now, this could change in a heartbeat. So if you're listening to this and he doesn't own it anymore, whatever. This is as I know to the best of my ability. But I think this is really fun because once we talk about a couple of these things, Walter and I will actually show you where the wealth is. The wealth isn't necessarily just that you own a property. There's more to it than that. There's things called equity and leverage that are really important factors. There are people who end up upside down. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's not always just owning a property. There's more to it. So one of Kanye's properties that he owns is a Monster Lake Ranch. I believe that's the actual name of the ranch, is Monster Lake Ranch in Wyoming, and is a massive piece of land that is worth currently right around $11 million, which is pretty incredible. So I need to write this down. So we got 11 million, right? Because we're going to have fun with this, Walter. And I think you know where I'm going to go with this. This ranch has 4,000 acres. Okay. That's unbelievable. If you guys really can't comprehend, I was working on a plan with the city of Gallatin in Tennessee to take 350 acres and build hundreds of homes, and a shopping center, and a movie theater, and small local businesses, and a vineyard next door. So that was with a couple hundred, right? So 4,000 acres of land is a huge amount. In the future, we'll have it to where it's like a comparison, right? You know how like they do with tallest buildings?
Yeah.
Well, we'll do a comparison. 4,000 acres is unbelievable, guys. Then he has a $2.2 million another $2.2 million home in Wyoming, which was like next door, I believe, to the one he talked about, which I believe just the house was worth 2.2. The rest of the land was worth 14.5 million. I promise, bear with me, guys. I'm going to show you something here that's pretty important, okay? And it'll be high level, but it's pretty insane. Oh, there it is. Yep. He owns a bunker in Malibu, which is crazy, for 57. You hear me? 57.3 million. Oh my gosh, this dude's portfolio is insane. Like, I know he's got international homes, by the way, which are that's a depending on the country, that's a feat to accomplish. There's a lot of rules. Like in Japan, you cannot own property in Japan if you are not a citizen of Japan. Anybody who's super, it might be not 100% correct, right? It might be a green card, or if you have an LLC or something like that. But at a base level, a lot of countries do not let outsiders come in, non-citizens come in and own property. And it's actually really smart if you think about it, because if you're an enemy, you could literally just go and buy up land.
Like China does in America.
What? No, China would never do that. Let's see. He owns another property, a mansion. I think it's in like LA somewhere, 4.5 million. There's a couple other properties that he owns. The one in Belgium, it's estimated to be a couple million, but housing prices in Belgium are very difficult to grab from here. So let's be generous and say it's 2.1 million. All right, so now I'm gonna add these all up because I'm sure nobody else was paying attention.
Just over 90 million.
Did you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's just over $90 million in real estate.
Now, here's the thing. Okay, so hey, what's up, Camellia? That's over 3,000 football fields. Holy crap! Dude owns over 3,000 football fields. Basically, that's a lot of football. That's a lot of football fields. Now I'm like, how many football fields are there in America? So let's see. So just over 90 million. Now, someone in the comments is going to turn around. I can hear it. I can feel the tweet coming, right? Well, he had $1 billion contract. 90 million is like a drop in the bucket compared to what he's losing. That's because you don't understand how leverage works and equity works, right? Most people think that the value of a property is the ability to sell it. That's a mistake, okay? It's not that, he has $90 million, so he can go sell everything and make $90 million. No, that'd probably be actually, depending on expenses and costs, right? I'm doing a general overview. One of the worst strategies.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a shout out to, it's a rapper and it's another singer. And every time he buys a home, he rents it out immediately for production. I cannot remember his name. Mr. Rapper, if you're watching this, first of all, props to you. Thanks for tuning in. But basically, every time he buys a mansion, he turns it into a cash flowing property. Kanye can do that immediately. People would film at Kanye's properties just to say that they filmed at Kanye's properties. That increases his value and worth. It's essentially like when an Airbnb, you compare one that has a theme and then one that doesn't. One that has a theme will statistically sell higher, book more, and have a lot higher profit than one that doesn't. Kanye is a theme. Going to Kanye's houses are a theme. They're a desirable attraction. So if he's got 90 million, he can leverage that. He can collateralize those to turn each property into double, to where he can use the equity in the property. Then he can go and loan against the property. He could probably get a second loan against the property on top of the equity and on top of the first lien. So he can take, let's say, that $11 million property and turn it into $33 million of collateral. So in actuality, Kanye realistically probably has around 300 million worth of collateral in his properties alone. And that's not to talk about what he has in those properties that can also be used as collateral. And while he's using these as collateral, guys, he can be renting them out for production, for videos, for there are celebrity players actually like that have not gotten all their money, but they want to live the lifestyle. Okay. This is very common, actually very common amongst pro athletes, where they'll go rent a mansion because they don't have the money to buy it because their contract is not always paid in a lump sum, right? But they want to live the style of money they don't have. So they'll go rent Kanye's mansion that he doesn't use from Kanye so that they can live like Kanye. Okay. So you take all of the rent that probably he can get I know he goes by Yi now. Sorry. It's hard to keep up with that. So yeah, Yi, but it feels weird. Like, did I stutter? But so you take all of that, Kanye is probably sitting on an income cash flowing probably around several $1 million that he can do every single year, maybe even month, depending on the demand, as well as $300 million worth of an appreciating asset.
Not quite broke. Not quite broke.
Not quite broke. Okay. That's really imperative. That is why you can see someone like 50 Cent. See, I said it right. 50 Cent go bankrupt and still make hundreds of millions of dollars, right? It's leverage, it's collateral, it's knowing when to shut something down and take your losses and turn those losses into profit somewhere else. There's also something called tax harvesting. This is a really important thing we won't get into today, but tax harvesting. It's where you sell at a loss to maximize the losses that you can collateralize against your tax, what you owe in taxes. The reason why I'm telling you this, guys, so you don't get caught up in garbage. Know the data. So it's fun to talk about Kanye, but also Kanye's teaching you a lesson here. He's not broke. And your clients aren't broke as long as you can help them to leverage their opportunity. Help them to leverage real estate. Know your data, know your facts, know what to do, right? And make them little Kanyes of their own communities. That they could lose their main job and still have income producing assets, collateralizable assets. All right. Thank you for, sorry, Walter, anything you want to comment on with Kanye?
No, I mean, I think you hit that pretty well. Like, that's the beauty of a real estate portfolio, whether you're out there doing a 9-to-5 or not. If you leverage it properly and you have properly managed assets, you're always going to have income. You're always going to have wealth, and it's always theoretically going to go up in value over the long period of time. So it's a great hedge against life. I own real estate. Oh crap, I lost my job. Cool. I'll rent out my properties. I'll sell one and put 6 figures in the bank, and that'll ride me out till I get my next job. It's a hedge against life.
It is. It absolutely is. So now for everybody listening, we're going to do this pretty consistently, so get used to it. Can you answer 2 important questions with facts and data that you don't have to look up, but you can recite off the top of your head? Question number 1, why is now a good time to buy? Give me the facts and data. Question number 2, why is now a good time to sell? Give me the facts and data. If you can't answer those questions, why on earth would anyone ever want to work with you? Let's be real, right? Let's be real. Why would they want to work with you if you can't answer the 2 most basic questions that everybody is looking for you to answer? It's not interest rates that they're asking about. It's whether they're making a good decision or not. They want validation from you. Give them validation through facts, not opinions. Okay? All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you found a ton of value. We go live, Scale Through the Fail, every Friday, 9 a.m. Central. Replays on YouTube and other areas like that. We take your questions. No question is too hard for us. And if we don't know, we'll be the first ones to tell you we don't know. And next week we'll come back and we'll know. We'll know. But so drop those questions for us. If you've got any questions about what's going on in the market, maybe you don't understand something about bond rates. We got people asking about our investment strategy. Man, connect with us. Leave a comment. Ask a question. You struggling with objections? Maybe you know the data, but you don't know how to say the data. That's okay. Let us know. We'll go live with you. We'll send you resources. We'll connect with you. Walter and I are not shy. We will talk about this stuff. All right. Drop those questions. Walter, thank you for joining us today, educating us so much on what's going on with the Feds, bond rates, and everything like that. Any last words for anybody?
Nope. Go out there and crush it. Have a wonderful weekend. I got to go jump into another coaching call.
All right. See you guys
next week.